admitting people as people are coming in?
Yes, I will.
Awesome. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think people are kind of trickling in, but I just wanted to say welcome to everyone who's here. This is a great turnout. I'm super excited. So I think Ms. Talbert's agreeing with me over there. Um,
Yes, welcome
so,
everyone.
yes. My name is Amina Garcia. I am the senior counselor in charge of senior programming at Shepherd High School. Ms. Talbert, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Vaughn Talbert. I am a counselor over at Richards. I am overseeing your programming there. Welcome, everyone.
All right, folks. So we are also accepting students in the Zoom from Eisenhower High School as well. The senior counselor there is Jamie Konzelman. She's amazing. She wasn't able to be here tonight, I don't think, but absolutely a great resource as well for our district. I wanted to have this meeting today. We do this annually with our parents, or at least we try to. The information that we are presenting today, for the most part, was presented to our seniors already in their English classes, but we really like to reiterate it with parents because we want to make sure that flow of information is open. This is a really busy time for everyone involved. So your students are balancing a full course load and they're applying to schools. You're trying your best to support them and figure out how to best do that. The counselors are trying to assist all of the seniors on their caseload with with their applications. So it's just kind of good to keep an open line of communication. And I just wanted to say this is the first in a three-part series that we're having during the month of September. So today we're doing an overview of the college application process. Next Thursday at the same time, 6 o'clock p.m., we're having a presentation from Moraine Valley Community College Office of Admissions. So if you have more in-depth questions about the community college route, that would be a great time to ask them. And then the third and final presentation in the series is September 25th. And that would be our overview of the financial aid process. But I wanted to begin tonight with just a little bit of a poll to see who's represented here. So let's see if I can do this. I'm going to launch a poll, and you can select a school that your student attends, just so we can kind of tailor our information the best that we can too. So, oh, awesome, you guys. I feel great. This is my first Zoom poll ever done. Great. Thank you guys so much. So we're looking at almost 50% of our attendees are from Shepherd, 18 to 20% from Eisenhower, and 35% from Richards. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to end this now. That's good to know. Okay, and the session is being recorded too, so I'll be posting it on the Shepherd website and then I'll be sending it to the other senior counselors, and you guys can kind of decide how you best want to spread that too. Okay. Without further ado, let's get started. So, when we talk about post-secondary pathways, and again, tonight will be more so on the college application process side of things, we know that our seniors, while everyone has kind of a unique pathway that they're going to be pursuing in their own circumstances and their own backgrounds, for the most part, they fall into these three top categories of more schooling, full-time job, and then on-the-job training. And so our best bet for advising students through this process is to kind of see where they fall on this and then advise accordingly. I would say, or I would, want to say, hey, there is kind of like a one answer that could answer most of your questions, but the reality is it's so diverse what each of our students are planning. But for the most part, we can determine their pathway and then advise the best that we can. So again, because so many of our students are applying for more school after high school, we want to make sure that we are giving the information on what they should be doing now. So right now, between the months of September and November, what most of our seniors are doing is really finalizing their list of schools that they're applying to, right? And so many factors that are not even on the screen can go into what gets that college a place on your student's application list. The three that are included on this screen, though, are considered like really important top three. Maybe we should have this determine like if we're even applying to this school or not. So the first would be the degrees offered. We want to make sure that our students are finding the schools that offer the programs that would best prepare them for the careers that they want. So if your student is interested in pursuing a degree in nursing and you're visiting schools and you have found a school that has a beautiful campus and excellent facilities and you feel like you're connecting with the staff and your student can just see themselves walking around, but they don't have a nursing program, that's a make or break moment in deciding whether or not we should invest time and resources into applying to that school. So make sure that the programs match their students' interests, that they have a strong reputation in the field. There are schools out there that are known for certain programs within their university. And then again, options if you change majors. Changing majors in college is extremely common, right? And we want to make sure that the schools that we're applying to have a pretty clear pathway of how a student would do that. So that's an important information to consider in the degrees that are offered. Admission requirements, obviously, the GPA expectations, what test scores they're requiring, and then application components. So, what this means is as you're applying to schools and you're researching their websites and you're visiting and you're talking to current students and faculty, if you're able to, some schools have a minimum GPA to even apply. There are schools that out there that say, hey, if to submit an application, we want to see a minimum GPA of 3.3 or higher. This sometimes happens, but what might be more common is a school will often give what the middle 50% of their admitted students look like in terms of their GPA. So, one school that in particular that I was looking at today with a student was Illinois State, right? And they had a middle 50% GPA of somewhere between 3.3 and 4.2, right? So that doesn't mean that if your student falls outside of that, that they shouldn't apply, but it gives you a really great estimation of where that student falls in their match, right, for GPA expectations. And then we always get a lot of questions about this, especially post-COVID, but whether or not a school will require test scores. I'll go a little bit more in depth into this in a future slide. But just noting as you're looking at schools and you're building your list, which schools are requiring them, which schools have test optional policies, and which schools are even test blind, right? And the differences between all of those. And then the last, cost and financial aid. So this I wish I put like a big asterisk next to it. So while it is important, um, while it is important to cover in your application process to look at the cost and look at financial aid options. We really encourage students to look beyond the sticker price. And what that means is, as you're in this exploration phase of schools and you're building your college list, you're going to see a lot of scary numbers on a school's website. So if you're on DePaul University's website and you're on their tuition and fees page, and you're seeing that full price tuition at DePaul is $48,000 a year, which is somewhere around there, full price, knowing that there's maybe fewer than 1% of students at that school paying that price, right? So while it's something to consider, I would say I don't know if it's necessarily a thing right off the bat where we say we're not applying to this school because that sticker price is looking way too high, right? The reality is we're not going to know what we're paying to attend that school until after that financial aid application process completes, which is usually in the spring, right? But you can use different tools like net price calculators. Many schools have these on their websites where you can input your own data and get an estimation of what your actual out-of-pocket cost will look like. And then consider all expenses too, right? So whether or not your student is dorming is very important. So our room and board price is going to be added. Are certain programs more expensive than others, right? So is the nursing program more expensive than the liberal arts and sciences, right? So all of these things are things to consider. And what I have here at the bottom, this is happening at all three buildings in our district. So college rep visits. September is chock full of representatives from all of these different schools coming to visit Shepherd. And what these representatives are doing are getting face-to-face time with students. They're answering personalized questions that students may have. They're giving great information, not just on admission, the admission process to their schools in general, but information on specific programs that our students are interested in as well. So recently, I know at Shepherd, we had UIC come to visit, and we filled the entire Astro Cafe with students who are interested in UIC. And the representative there actually sat with students after the presentation and scheduled campus visits with them, right? I know, Vaughn, if you have anything that you want to add about what you see with our campus rep visits.
Yeah, so at Richards, we do things a little bit differently. You don't have to sign up to see any college reps at Richards because they are typically in the lunchroom. So any student can go up to a representative and speak with them about the school. So we found that they get a little bit more traction that way, and they get an opportunity to meet with any school that they, may be interested in. So we have it listed on our website, and we also put it in the senior Google Classroom when those visits will be. And like Ms. Garcia said, we have a ton of visits throughout the month of September as well.
Yes, I agree. They're great. Most of the students that I meet with after they've met with a rep, it can completely change the course of their thinking with the school selection process. So really take advantage of that. Reach out to your student's counselor if you're unsure of how to get them registered to meet with the rep or where to find them, as Ms. Talbert said. But one thing I will add, so I did mention that, a lot can go into selecting a school on your list. So if you have different criteria, that applies to your student. Like maybe your student is an athlete, right? And recruiters have started to reach out. And so you're looking specifically at athletic programs. Or if you've always wanted your student to have the experience of attending an HBCU or a religious school, right? A religiously affiliated school, all of those things are going to be important in the decision-making process as well. So again, I could go on forever with the different criteria that we look at to make sure that everyone gets their best match. But again, it's about what would be take the most precedence. So one thing that we assess with our seniors at the beginning of every school year is, do you know how to apply to college, right? And a fair chunk of our students begin their senior year unsure of the exact process of how to submit an application, a completed application to a school. So we just want to make sure that we're giving you this information as well because we're really trying to hammer it in with them. So one, there's multiple components that would add to a completed college application. And the first is usually the completed application form and fee. So there's a couple of different options for submitting a college application. Most common with our students, a lot of them use Common App. So I think it's about 900 schools that accept the Common Application nationwide. Or a student can use a school-specific form. And it's really going to be up to you or your students if whatever form you want. So if you're applying to a large number of schools and you want to kind of have everything centralized in one location, Common App can be a really powerful tool for that. If your student is very thoughtful about where they're applying and they are really only interested in a couple of schools and they put a lot of thought into that decision and they would rather save time and just fill out those individual applications, that's absolutely an option too for a lot of schools. So just pay attention as you're researching a school's website, what application they accept, and what would make the most sense for you and your student. And then the fee. So we also get a lot of questions about fee waivers. So a lot of schools do require an application fee. They range all over the place in terms of price. If you think that your student might qualify for a fee waiver, you can reach out to your school counselor to verify that. Usually, if you get your school registration fees waived, you will qualify for a fee waiver, and we can verify that in Common App through School Links. The high school transcript is the second part. So once you submit that form, whether it's through Common App or school-specific online application, and you pay that fee, it's on us, the school, to make sure that the school that you applied to receives an official copy of your high school transcript. So we use School Links here to do this. And students were just taught how to link their Common App and School Links accounts in their English classes. I'll go more in depth into this in the next slide. But essentially, if your student is submitting applications and you guys are still getting emails from the school saying that you're missing your high school transcript, we probably need to get that school on their School Links account, right, to make sure that their counselor can see where they need to send their transcript. And then lastly, supplemental materials. This is highlighted because this is probably the most common kind of question that we get asked because it can be so school specific, whether or not a college will require some of these things and then how much weight they put into each of them. So one example is you might need to submit a personal essay, right? So again, as you're researching schools, keep track of who's requiring it, who's saying it's optional, and who's saying they don't even want it and they're not going to take it. Same with recommendations and same with test scores. Recommendations, we have a process of requesting teacher recommendations through School Links. So again, your students should have been taught how to do this, but if you're curious about it, please encourage your student to reach out to your counselor, to their counselor, and we will walk them through the process of requesting recommendations. Okay. Test scores again. The advice that we get from colleges, and when I say we, I mean the counselors who are, always trying to get updated information to pass on to you guys. I was just on a Zoom with the Big Ten Alliance yesterday, and we were talking about test policies. What they could not stop talking about is you really need to read the specific language around the test policy of each particular school, right? So there are some schools out there that are test blind, saying we don't even want your scores to be sent. We won't consider them. Don't worry about it. Those are test blind institutions. Test optional institutions say, and this is where all of the variation can take place. They might say, you don't have to submit your test scores if you are nervous that they would hinder your application, right? So if you don't submit them, we won't consider them. However, again, read through the specific policy because while a school might be test optional, they might have language saying if you want access to certain scholarships, we want an official SAT or ACT score. If you want access into our more selective engineering program, we want that SAT or ACT score, right? Or a school like Purdue that is they're coding themselves as test encouraged, right? So they're saying we are encouraging students to submit test scores. If they don't submit it, we want a clear reason as to why, right? So the language around that is please submit your test scores, right? And it could possibly impact a decision if you don't. So again, read the specific language. If you feel like your student is still confused and you guys are still wondering about it, by all means, contact your student's counselor and we can read the language together. We've seen lots of different policies over the years, especially post-COVID, so we can advise you on that.
And I just can't stress enough to make sure that you are following the directions on if you're applying on Common App, because not every school has the same requirements. And I think, many times students will say, well, I did everything on the Common App. But if you're applying to a school that may want you to self-report your grades, that may be something else that you see on there. You put your grades in on your own. Some schools will want that official transcript from the school. So you got to pay attention. You have to follow directions. And like Ms. Garcia said, if anything is confusing to you, that's what we're there for. We are more than happy to help you decipher and understand what's going on with their request.
Thank you so much. Um, so I talked a little bit about this before, and so oftentimes parents will reach out because, again, if that transcript is missing from your student's application, you'll often get these emails kind of like frantically asking, hey, your application is incomplete. We're missing your high school transcript. So if you're getting those emails and you know your student has submitted the application form and the fee, they probably need to still request the transcript through School Links. So School Links is that third party college and career planning platform that we use that would send what is called an official transcript, right? So an official transcript is different than an unofficial one. What makes a transcript official is that it does not really pass through the hands of the student, right? It needs to come directly from the school to the institution that it's being sent. Okay. So if your student is receiving these emails, please encourage them to connect with us and we can kind of walk them through the process of requesting their transcript. So I know currently at Shepherd, and I think this is the case district wide, we're still waiting on the mass upload of official transcripts to happen in School Links. So hang tight for a little bit. We're hoping within the next few days here, we want the most accurate official transcripts to be uploaded into School Links. Once that happens, we're going to just start releasing them, right, for the schools to download them. Okay, when to apply, right? So many institutions will have two sets of deadlines. Not all of them, but many of them. When you hear priority deadlines, sometimes you'll hear priority, early action, right? These are kind of used interchangeably. They mean roughly the same thing. So one thing that college admissions representatives are thinking about that we are not really thinking about are their seat numbers, right? So when we talk about the difference between hitting a priority deadline and a regular deadline, it really is the difference is that first round of admissions. So in a hypothetical situation, two students of the same GPA, the same class rank, with the same test scores could apply to a certain school. One applies by that November 1st priority deadline, one applies by that regular deadline, and that priority deadline student gets that seat. and that regular deadline student does not get that seat because that first round of admissions already happened, right? So most of the school's admitted students will come from that first round of priority applications. A lot of them fall on November 1st, but we see ranges from November 1st to November 15th to December 1st, right? So again, make sure that you're reading your school's specific application information and adhering to the correct deadline. So again, on that Zoom with the Big Ten Alliance that we participated in yesterday, Northwestern came on and said that 55% of their admitted students came from their early decision, right? Which is something to keep in mind too. So as you're looking at schools, there's language that could say early decision instead of early action. Keep in mind when you're reading that policy, there are some schools out there where that early decision is a binding decision, meaning if you apply and get in by that early decision deadline, you need to withdraw all of your other applications from your other schools and commit to going to that school. This is not as common, right? But it's something to be aware of as you're reading that application language. Okay. And then regular deadlines, I'll have some examples of some of our more common schools that students apply to. They can really vary. You know, there are schools that have a regular deadline in February, and then there are schools that have a regular deadline of August 1st the next year, right? So again, make sure that you're reading all of the language that applies to that deadline. One thing that would be important to know with deadlines too, there are schools out there that determine their scholarship eligibility based on this as well. So they are saying that if you want access to our merit scholarship pool when you are admitted, you need to hit that November 1st deadline, right? Ms. Talbert, do you have anything else to add about deadlines?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. Um, yeah, I think you covered everything.
Good. And so here are some examples based on our enrollment data from last year about where some really common schools that students apply to. So I have Illinois State, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, DePaul University, Loyola University. I tried to kind of mix in a good mix of public and private. So you'll see UIUC and Illinois State are both November 1st. DePaul is a little bit later at November 15th, and then Loyola is the latest at December 1st. So you'll see with the regular deadlines, the dates are kind of all over the place. And Loyola this year is not even giving us a final date. They're saying, well, if there's seats, you can have one, right? They do have a decision deadline of May 1st, but they're even saying, you know, if there are seats, we'll take you after May 1st, right? So again, read the specific language around each school's deadlines. Okay, this is kind of an update for you guys this year. This is brand new for the senior class of 2026. So there is a new law in the state of Illinois where all of the 12 big state universities, public state universities, will be participating in this program. It's being grandfathered in. What you need to know for your seniors is if especially they are using the Common Application, there is now a new program called the One Click Direct Admit, right? So this is again the result of a state law. 8 of the 12 universities are participating in it this year. I have the universities that are participating in it on the next slide. And then next year, all 12 universities will be participating. But essentially, if your student completes a checklist of information within Common App, and if you were to log into your student's Common Application account right now and look at the tabs along the left-hand side, you'll see a tab that's brand new that says Direct Admissions Offers. What this means is the schools that are participating, based on the information that you have already entered in Common App, will run weekly reports where a matching process happens. So just based on a student's self-reported GPA, maybe like their address verification and a few of the other things that are on this checklist here, they will give your student potentially an offer of direct admission. Okay. And so what this is it's essentially telling the student, as long as you submit this application on Common App, you have a seat. And the perks that we're seeing that are happening with this new program is often or almost always the application fee is waived. Occasionally the essay will be waived, and there might be other things that are considered perks, right, of that application. Maybe they won't require the letters of recommendation, right? I have not seen yet any differences in merit scholarship offers or anything like that. So again, because it's a new program, I'm just starting to see these for the first time now. But what I've always seen is the application fee being waived, an essay being waived, and then recommendations being waived as well. If your student goes through the process to accept this, it is non-binding. So if they enter in their direct admissions information and they receive an offer from Governor State within Common App, they can submit that direct admission application and still just have it as one of their options. They're not committing to that school. So all this direct admissions is saying is, as long as you submit, you have a seat. You still have to adhere to the deadlines, right? But it's more so an assurance and, waiving of different requirements. So these are the schools this year that are participating in it. Again, all 12 universities will be participating in it starting next year. But Northeastern, Governor State, Chicago State, Eastern, Western, SIUC, SIUE, and NIU all are participating in Illinois one-click direct admit program this year. Okay, so this is probably one of the most common sets of questions that we get asked from students. What should I be doing and when, right? They're sitting with their friends in the cafeteria. They are getting stressed out because they're hearing that so and so has already applied to 5 schools, but like I haven't started my Common App account yet. So what should I be doing and when? So here's a general timeline of what we should be doing right now. So I'm dividing it into fall, winter, and spring, right? So in September, you should really just be finalizing your schools. You should absolutely be meeting with your counselor to do your final credit check, to get final advising on where you should be submitting applications. What should also be on here too, because we talked about it at length, is meeting with college reps, right? Because September is so busy in terms of that. And then you can absolutely start your applications now. We have lots of students who have already submitted, frankly, at this point in the school year because most open August 1st. But really, October is when we really start to see this kick up a notch. So it says retake the SAT or ACT. This is the latest, the absolute latest that you want to push your students retake if your student is doing this. And this is because you want that score available for those priority deadlines, right? So I believe both organizations, the SAT and ACT, offer a national test taking day in early October. They do this purposely to make sure that those scores are ready for the application season. You would need to register separately to take these tests for your students. And so if your students have questions about that, again, reach out to your counselor, talk about like the cost benefit of it. But that's the absolute latest that you would want to push or retake. You want to continue to work on applications and essays. We have a college and career fair happening here the last Wednesday in October. That is a little bit late, depending on where you are in the process. But if your student is still open to adding schools to their list, we love fairs. It's kind of like window shopping, right? You can connect with different representatives. You can collect all kinds of information. They're really great opportunities. We always get great turnout. It's a great time. And then FAFSA, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in depth in a future slide, and we're going to have a full presentation on it September 20, is it 5th? September 25th. But I'll talk a little bit more about what you need to know for it because it opens on October 1st. And then November, we're hitting those priority deadlines and we're continuing to work on any regular deadlines that your students have, right?
I wanted to add if you go back to the previous slide, I always like to put the FAFSA in the September column because you can actually get your FSA ID going now. And, most parents have, if you've already attended college, you already have one. So you may want to take this time, if you haven't logged on to there in a while, to get your ID and your login ready to go because you will need to be a contributor on your child's FAFSA. So since it opens up on October 1st, I think September is a good time to kind of get ready for that. FAFSA is like a big bucket and there's lots of hands in there. So the earlier that you can get that FAFSA filed and you can get that information taken care of, the sooner, you may hear back from schools about your package that they're willing to give you. So I like to add that to September.
And that's why you're the best in the biz. That's like a great piece of advice. Absolutely. I'm going to have a slide in a second that, yeah, goes more in depth into that. Um, all schools in our district offer FAFSA workshops. And again, I'll dive more into it in a second, but it's just something that we probably get the most questions on from parents, right? Because it's a big piece. So for our winter, Submit remaining applications by any deadlines. You saw some of those priority deadlines are pushed into December. Requesting official transcripts and mid-year grades. So hopefully by winter, your schools will have your official transcripts. But there are some schools out there that ask for what's called a mid-year report. And this is why it's important for your students to keep their senior grades strong, right? We want to fight off that senioritis as best we can. We want to maintain a consistency with your students' GPA because there are schools out there. UIC is one that comes to mind that every year asks for a seventh semester transcript. They want to see how your students are completing the fall semester of their senior year, right? Because that's an important piece of at least their decision process. In the winter, starting October 1st, you really want us to complete that FAFSA as soon as possible, right? So again, like Ms. Talbert said, when you complete that FAFSA profile and you submit it and you've added your schools, you're giving your colleges more notice and more time to offer you that financial aid package, right? So you're going to have more information at your hands sooner, the sooner that you submit that application. The first year that the new FAFSA was rolled out, we saw a lot of delays in financial aid decision, but frankly, after last year, it's looking really smooth. And I'm really confident in this new FAFSA form. It's very simplified. When I sit with students to complete it with their parents, we're done in maybe like 20 to 30 minutes max. So I'm feeling really great about it. And again, just to reiterate, have your students keep their grades strong, right? So senior year can be a lot, hopefully if they've done what they're supposed to been doing, they have submitted their applications, they're balancing a full course load. It's just kind of important to keep in mind, that your GPA during your senior year can impact a college decision, right? So there are those schools that ask for that seventh semester transcript, but then think, whatever school that your student commits to in May, when financial aid has been decided, merit scholarships have been awarded. If your student's GPA has kind of a dramatic change in that last semester and they send that final transcript to that school that they committed to, that could potentially impact their financial aid that they receive or even an admissions decision, right? So I'm thinking of a case a few years ago where a student had more than a significant dip in their last semester of their senior year. And so they were knocked into the lower tier of merit awards, right? And they lost something like $20,000 just based on that dramatic change in their GPA. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. Okay, and then finally, the spring. So this is when these financial aid offers and acceptances really start to roll in if they haven't already. And you'll have a clear picture and that you can compare and contrast across the board of the financial aid offers from all of your students' schools. So you should be having some kind of comparison process, right? In terms of the aid that we see families getting from FAFSA and from the school's offices of financial aid, it's mostly in the form of grants and loans, right? So grants are that money that you don't need to pay back that's based on need, so the income that you reported. And then loans could be subsidized or unsubsidized, the direct loans from studentaid.gov. And again, I haven't looked at the interest rate for this year, actually. I usually have that information by now. But again, you'll have all of that information applied to your financial aid package from the schools that you've added, and you'll be able to compare your out-of-pocket costs, right? Again, if your student is admitted to schools and they haven't visited yet, we definitely want to fit in a visit so they can definitely see what it feels like to be at that campus. And then nationally, May 1st is considered decision day. It is the most common date that schools ask for you to commit to their institution and pay that deposit for room and board or that first initial registration fee. And you need to notify your schools of your choice, right? And then in the spring, we work with seniors to go through the process of requesting their final transcript to be sent to their college. That's that last step before they get to campus where they certify, yes, we met the graduation requirements, we still meet the admission requirements, and we are good to go and start our life in college, right? So we will be doing that with seniors in the spring. Anything to add for the spring? No? Cool. All right, yeah, FAFSA. So it opens October 1st. You want to file as soon as possible for your best results. It's going to require tax information from students and parents. So we have on our website a list of all of the information that you need to bring to complete the FAFSA. Honestly, with the new IRS data pool tool that they have, you might not even need to bring things because student aid works with IRS where they connect your social security number and they'll be able to pull your 2024 data a lot of the time. So that really has been simplified as well. So really, I feel like a lot of families put this off because they're a little bit scared to sit down and talk with their kids about money. But what we've seen in the past couple years since they've simplified it is that process has become a lot easier. And this data determines your eligibility for those grants, loans, and the work study program. If you don't know that work study is something that you could qualify for through FAFSA, it allows your student to get a job on campus at a particular institution at wherever they're committed. And up to a certain dollar amount, they could have that income applied towards their cost of attending the school, right? And so, like Ms. Talbert said, yes, it opens on October 1st, but if you want to be in the best shape possible and have your student in the best shape possible for when it does open, you should absolutely be verifying that your student has an account and you have an account that you both can access, right? What sometimes happens is you create the account and then it takes anywhere up to 3 days to have your identity verified sometimes. So if you waited until October 1st to complete that FAFSA account, you might need to wait a little bit further into October to actually access it, right? So get ahead of it, create the account now. And again, we're going to go more in depth into this at our September 25th presentation, but we have a great resource across the district. We work with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. So we have representatives from ISAC that attend office hours at all three schools and work with students to assist them in completing the FAFSA. So the students should have the dates for these visit dates as well. But I know at Shepherd, it's biweekly on Wednesdays in the Astro Cafe. Your student can just bring their iPad, work on their FAFSA with the representative, and get all the information they need to make sure that that's complete. Vaughn, do you know what your schedule is for ISAC?
Yes, it's the same. So it's biweekly. They're typically there with our Moraine Valley rep. We are outside of the counseling office. Those dates are posted in the senior Google Classroom. They're also posted on the Richards Counseling webpage.
Same. Great. Okay, so just some other things to kind of keep in mind. So other financial aid options. There are some private institutions out there that also require more than the FAFSA. They require something called a CSS profile. So I think Northwestern was one of these institutions that I know has required one. It's very similar to the FAFSA, except it's considered more detailed, right? So your institution would reach out to you if you still needed to complete the CSS profile instead of FAFSA, but most institutions will just be fine with the FAFSA. Scholarships. There's lots of things happening with scholarships now. At all three buildings, we have resources ready and waiting for your students to get connected with these scholarships. If you are curious about what your student can be doing to qualify for scholarships outside of whatever institution they're applying to, by all means, have them meet with us because we have a lot to give. They could be local, national, school-specific scholarships. Think when your student gets admitted, that first merit scholarship that they awarded would just be applied to that school. But if they're looking at like these national essay competitions or like a local business that is offering like a scholarship, that could be more tailored to whatever institution you wanted it applied to. And then we talked a little bit about grants and work study already, right? So again, some tips for some strong applications. I feel, and probably Ms. Talbert agrees with me, the essays. We want to start those essays early because the number of students that we've met with in late October who are still stressing over it, right? You don't want that to be the last thing that your student is stressing about. What I usually recommend is if your student has a great relationship with a certain English teacher to maybe get some feedback from English teachers already. I know at Shepherd, our senior English teachers actually like have an assignment in class where students write their college essays. I think this might be district wide. So right now, I know in our senior English classes like Man, Myth, Monster, True Crime and Literature, the students are actually writing their essays in class and getting feedback from teachers. The recommenders. This is a great September task for your students. If they are applying to schools where they know that they'll need to request letters of recommendation, they should absolutely give the most notice that they possibly can. So they should be finalizing, okay, who am I going to ask, and reaching out to them with plenty of notice and asking them to submit a letter of recommendation through school links. Because again, what we see is students sometimes like might not keep track of which schools are requiring them. And then October 30th hits and they see, oh my goodness, this is missing in school links, and they'll send that request in a panic to a teacher, and like hopefully they're really gracious and they could try their best to accommodate it, but if not, it sometimes is not enough time, right? So this is a great September task. Stay organized, right? Common App is a great resource itself, really, for organizing all of your things, like your deadlines and what's been submitted already. But if you feel like you have a great resource, like maybe you've got a spreadsheet going with your student, there are these apps out there. I wish I had a couple of examples, but I found a couple that are purposely meant for like tracking college application progress. School Links College Application Manager is a great way to organize this too. Having a way to stay organized so you're making sure that you're meeting your deadlines and all of the necessary materials are submitted, and proofreading everything, right, carefully before submitting. What I'll say about this too, and this is new for this year, it seems, but schools right now in the application process, they were kind of talking about this on that Big Ten Zoom that we were in, are grappling with what to do about AI and essays, right? And so schools are starting to release AI statements on their application websites to clearly lay out how using AI in an essay could possibly impact an admissions decision, right? So that's kind of emerging for the first time this year. So it's great if your student is using AI as a tool, right? It's here. There's ways that we can use it to, get the process started, but really monitor like, hey, is this balanced and is my student's words really coming through on their own, right? So that's kind of something to keep in mind when you're proofreading. Again, resources that are available to your students. Our counselors here, September through November, really like December 1st, we've kind of got an open door policy with our seniors. We know that you guys are working on this all the time, right? And there's a lot of details to keep track of. So making sure that your student is okay with self-advocacy and asking for help when needed is essential. There's a few websites up here that would be useful to your students. So studentaid.gov for the FAFSA, College Board. So many of our students across the district enroll in AP classes or have maybe taken the PSAT before. College Board itself is a great resource for matching with scholarships, researching schools through their tool called Big Future. So if your student has a College Board account, they're kind of at an advantage because it's a really great tool. And then across the buildings too, that senior Google Classroom, we're really trying to make it that first stop for seniors in this process as well. And making sure that you're staying abreast of events too that we're offering. So again, this is the first of a three-part series that we're having in September. So we're really trying to push the message out through Parent Square the best that we can. Again, your students might be experiencing different challenges throughout the application process. So just some gentle reminders about how to kind of help your student balance these things. So managing multiple deadlines, affording application fees, again, checking with your counselor to see if you do qualify for those. Understanding aid offers. This is really big in the spring. Sometimes we get those financial aid offer award letters and we just cannot decipher exactly what we're going to be paying out of pocket. I would hope that a lot of institutions are doing a better job at making that more clear. But if you need assistance with that, by all means, let's meet and kind of go over it together. And then balancing school and applications. All of these are things that we can kind of find little solutions to balance. And these are just some suggestions of how we might want to do that. So for you specifically, uh, as parents, right, supporting your teen through this process, stay calm, empower your teen. This is so important. Your child should lead the process, right? They're about to on a springboard into adulthood, right? And semi-independence. So really allowing them to take the lead the best that they can, right? I know it can be really tempting to want to go into their Common App accounts and like do everything that you can to make sure that they are submitting their things, but really making sure that your student is the one completing the process because they need to be engaged with it. They need to understand how big of a decision this is. And understand everything that can go into it, right? You can get organized together. So creating that calendar together, encouraging the use of resources. So if you see your student struggling, simple, hey, can you connect with your counselor, or emailing your student's counselor and saying, hey, I'm noticing that my student is struggling a little bit in this area. Can you call them down and meet with them? Right. So making sure that they're connecting with resources. And then privacy. This is just something interesting that I kind of added because I think a major stressor for a lot of students going through the college application process is they're talking in their friend groups about where they're applying, where they're getting accepted, who's getting denied, who's getting waitlisted, and a lot of things can happen emotionally with that. So like coaching your student, hey, if you're not comfortable like sharing, where you're getting admitted, where you got denied from, how are you going to navigate these conversations? And what's like a gentle way to kind of safeguard your information to where you're not feeling self-conscious about it? And emotionally, right? So the previous slide was more so practical tips, but emotionally, there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in the college application process. We should be celebrating effort, not just results, right? Be a patient sounding board. So listening without judgment, helping them think critically of their college choices, being flexible, right? So all the time, you would be so surprised at how many times during a senior year, a student will begin in August with a particular goal, and by May, they're complete 180 in their pathway after high school. And that's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing at all, right? You see them go through that process of things are sliding into place. They're learning information about this process. They're learning about more opportunities that are available to them and just keeping an open mind, right, about their pathway. Um, and then make time for joy, right? So we all kind of need time to spend together, to do the fun things as a family still, right? Even if it is a hectic time. So it's a great way to support your student during this process as well. So what I'd really like to do with any remaining time, I see there's some questions in the chat. But if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand. There should be an option to do that on your Zoom screen, and we can address it.
So I did answer the questions that popped up in the chat. I put in the link for the one-click admit, so you can go on there to get a little bit more information about that program. And then the studentaid.gov, if you wanted to go ahead and get started with the FSA ID for your student. And then as a parent, you're also going to need your own account. So if you don't have one, you can go ahead and sign up for that. If you have been a student before, you probably have an account. If you haven't accessed it in a while, you may want to spend some time trying to get that account ready to go. So I did put that in there. And just to reiterate, we do have a couple of other events coming up this month. Moraine Valley will be here Thursday, September 18th, same time, same place on Zoom. And then the following Thursday will be the financial aid presentation by ISAC, same time, same place on Zoom. And someone asked, does it matter how long ago we were students? Nope, they still have your information. So you will access it with your Social Security information. So when you get onto studentaid.gov, if you try to log in and you don't remember it, you may have to call in. It kind of depends. If you remember or not, if you change your last name, I've also seen this, like if you got married over the years, um, you may need to call in and update your account. So just know that that could be a barrier to you being able to contribute to your child's form. So something you might want to get on as soon as possible.
I'll second that. I have seen that in the past where, yes, your account exists if you attended school 15 years ago, right? But in the crossover of data, they say, yes, we know you have an account and you're not allowed to make a new one, right? But connect with us on the phone and we'll help you out. So great September task.
I have someone requested some more information about studying abroad. That is a great question. It's very specific. So if your student is thinking about doing that, we're happy as counselors to sit down and meet with them and talk about whatever that plan is that they're thinking about doing for a study abroad. I don't have anything specific to share about that right now. What about you, Ms. Garcia?
I had a student go to Poland last year. So in my experience, it's more so about researching the specific institution, and the process for requesting a transcript could be very different, right?
Mhm.
So we might need to use like a different platform to do it, but again, if that's your student, that individual counseling piece is going to be so important. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, we'll hang around here for a few more minutes. But if no one else has any other questions, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank
You
you.
make these programs so wonderful by your participation and staying engaged, and we appreciate all of you. But we'll